Shalom Chavarim. Peace, my friends. I just put up a video yesterday, and I can't seem to rest about a couple of things I talked about. Young 17-year-old boy I mentioned. Arthur, I hope you're watching this, because I'm answering your question specifically for you, but also I was talking about a lot of YouTubers who put videos out there with a lot of false information. And this ties in with it too. There's a group out there who are promoting quote-unquote the false prophecies of Christ. Elohim help them. Someone told Arthur that Matthew 24, specifically verse 34, I think he was talking about, is a failed prophecy. These are, people are putting these things out there. And Arthur, he says that he lost hope in God because someone told him that Matthew 24, verses 25 to 34, is a failed prophecy. He went on to say, I feel as though I'm living just to die. I'm telling you, man, my spirit, I can't rest over this. I mean, someone who's 17 years old to feel this way, and I know that in these times there are many 17-year-olds who feel this way. I can only trust in my beloved Elohim to lead them to this video and others out there whom the Father is using to bring His truth to those who have eyes that do see, who have ears that do hear, and who have hearts that do understand. These people who are talking about failed prophecies, there are no failed prophecies in the Word. There are prophecies that have not yet been fulfilled yet, but every single prophecy that's been fulfilled to such staggering detail and accuracy that the only way anyone could think that it's possible for any of Elohim's prophecies to fail would be that they're not familiar with the book. And these people who are promoting Matthew 24, Matthew 16, and I suppose others as failed prophecies, I guess they think that the Word was written in English, or worse yet, King James English, Old English. The Word was not written in English. And there is where these people get away with saying that a scripture means something when it doesn't. And I'm going to point that out. But also, they usually, when someone promotes a lie using the Word, they usually only use one sentence from the Word. And where two or more are gathered, there I will be also, the Master says. It takes two witnesses to establish a thing. It takes two scriptures to make a point. So whenever you hear anyone saying anything and they're only using one short scripture, stay away from them. Better yet, as I said in my video yesterday, get to know the Word yourself. That's what I'm here for. I've got over 150 videos on YouTube right now. Listen to all of them, watch all of them, and you'll get an understanding of the Word that will give you the kind of understanding that stops you from being fooled by fools. I want to thank David. Thank you, David, for pointing me at the refinersfire.org, where they point out, some clarifications about this, although I already knew this information, and that's what I want to share with you. Like I said, number one, in order to understand Scripture, you have to understand it as it was written, and that is in the Hebrew Aramaic language. So when we look at Matthew 24, specifically verse 34, where it says, this generation will by no means pass away. If I go to the original Aramaic, this book is pretty cool. I mean, it's written in Hebrew, translating the Aramaic into Hebrew, and then over on this side we have English. And if you read the English translation of the Aramaic, in its more literal sense, it says in verse 34, "Truly I say to you that this tribe will not pass away until all these things happen." This tribe will not pass until all these things happen. Now, those who are trying to say it's a false prophecy, we're trying to say that this generation, in other words, the generation of the people that Yeshua was speaking to, live and in person, that they won't pass away until all these things happen. And that's not proper. It's not a proper understanding. The original word for generation there in the Aramaic is sharbata, translated into Greek as genea. In either case, it could mean generation, but more specifically, tribe. And that tribe would mean Yehuda, the tribe of the Jews, Judah. But let's look at some other points. Matthew 24, in the beginning, verse 1, it says, going out, Yeshua went away from the Mikdash, and his Talmudim, those are those that are learning from him, came near to point out to him the buildings in the Mikdash, that's his temple. And Yeshua said to them, "Do you not see all these? Truly I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another at all, which shall not be thrown down." 38 years later, the temple was burned to the ground, laid waste, the city was leveled. So, they saw that, but more importantly, after that, Israel is going to be scattered all over the place and not come back to their land until 1948. I'm going to cover all that, and that's an important part of everything that's being talked about here in Matthew 24. But as he sat on the Mount of Olives, verse 3, the Talmudim came to him separately, saying, "Say to us, when shall this be, and what is the sign of your coming, and at the end of the age?" Catch this, the first thing he says to them, Yeshua answering said to them, "Take heed that no one leads you astray." Take heed, pay attention, that no one deceives you. This is the first thing he said. tell us when this will be, and what will be the sign of your coming, the second coming, when he takes over as Nagid, the king of Israel. And the first thing he says is, be careful. Don't be deceived. There are many out there who are deceiving people. And like I pointed out in my last video, the most important thing is that you only have one relationship in your life, and that's your relationship with Elohim. If you're not doing that, you are going to be deceived on many levels. So, take heed. Many will come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah, and they'll lead many astray. That's going on. It's been going on for many years. You shall begin to hear of fightings, reports of fighting. See that you're not troubled, for these things have to take place, but the end is not yet. In verse 15, he says, so when you see the abomination that lays waste, spoken of by Daniel, the Navi, the prophet, put up in the Mikdash, the temple, he who reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Yehuda flee to the mountains. First of all, just go back a couple of videos. I think 3 videos before my last video. I did a teaching on the book of Daniel, and Yeshua is pointing here at Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, when he says, when you see the abomination that lays waste. No one in his generation back then saw that. That's yet to come. In verse 20, pray that your flight does not take place in winter or on the Shabbat, the Sabbath. Judea is impassable in the winter. Satan knows that Israel must ask Yeshua to return before he can return. And so, this is why, Satan's out to kill all the Jews. Look at history. Look at how the Jews have been beaten down in so many ways. Senselessly. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But, Satan wants to wipe them off the earth. Why? Because Yeshua said, I won't come back until you call out for me. And so, if Satan could kill all of Israel, wipe them off the face of the earth so that they can't call out for him, then Yeshua can't return. Of course, that's not going to happen. That's what the 144,000 are all about in the book of Revelation. I have more than 20 videos, a whole series in my playlist. If you want to study the book of Revelation, please do that. The 144,000, those are protected from the hand of the enemy. And they do call out for Yeshua, and that's when the second coming occurs. Take a quick peek at Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 30, which says, in your distress, when all these words shall come upon you in the latter days, then you shall return to Yahweh your Elohim, and you shall obey his voice. For Yahweh your Elohim is a compassionate El. He does not forsake you, nor destroy you, nor forget the covenant of your fathers, which he swore to them. These things that Yeshua is talking about in Matthew 24 are about the latter days. And the latter days didn't begin. There's no way they could begin, at least until he went back to the Father and sent the Kodesh Spirit to begin indwelling the Ecclesia, commonly known as the church. People who talk about these are failed prophecies, they're misinterpreting, misunderstanding, and causing confusion to dwell in the hearts of those that they feed this rotten meat to. Back to Matthew chapter 24 and verse 22, we see the elect. That's Israel and all those that they save. You can look at that in Revelation chapter 7 and chapter 14. Verse 22 says, "And if those days were not shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the sake of the chosen ones, the elect, those days shall be shortened." Again, if those days were not shortened, no flesh would be saved. That cannot be said of, the time when Yeshua was standing here, or even 60 years later. That can be said today with all the nuclear threats going on in the world, all the countries that have so many nuclear capabilities, that it's possible now that 7 billion people could all be wiped out. Skip ahead to verse 29. "Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give its light, and the stars shall fall from the Shamayim," the heavens, "and the powers of the Shamayim shall be shaken." That's not a failed prophecy. It hasn't happened yet. Your faith needs to be strengthened if you can believe that this is a failed prophecy because, back around prior to 100 AD, the sun wasn't darkened and the moon still gave its light and the stars didn't fall. You need greater faith in the Word. Whatever the Word says will happen, it will happen. It just hasn't happened yet. And if your faith is not strong enough, pray and ask the Father to give you more faith, because faith is not something you can muster up. Faith is not something I can increase for you. Faith is a gift, a pure gift from Elohim. But this is talking about the tribulation period. Verse 30 continues, "And then the sign of the Ben of Adam, the Son of Man, shall appear in the Shamayim, and then all the tribes of the earth shall mourn, and they shall see the Ben of Adam coming on the clouds of the Shamayim with power and much esteem." These people who say that this is a failed prophecy, one day they will stand and they will see these things happening in the skies above them, and they will see Mashiach coming, and they will mourn with a greatness they never dreamed imaginable. Verse 31, "And he shall send his messengers with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his chosen ones from the four winds, from one end of the Shamayim to the other." This is talking about the second coming, not about the harpazo, commonly called the rapture. Verse 32, he says, "Learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that the summer is near. So you also, when you see all these, know that he is near at the doors." The fig tree. Learn this parable from the fig tree. The fig tree is Israel. Verse 34, "Truly I say to you, this generation, this tribe, Yehuda, shall by no means pass away until all this takes place." Jeremiah chapter 24, verses 5 through 7 says, "Thus said Yahweh, the Elohim of Yisrael, like these good figs, so do I acknowledge the exiles of Yehuda, whom I have sent out of this place for their own good into the land of the Kasdites. And I shall lay my eyes on them for good, and shall bring them back to this land. They hadn't left it yet when Yeshua was talking to them in Matthew 24. And I shall build them and not pull them down, and shall plant them and not pluck them up, and I shall give them a heart to know me, that I am Yahweh. And they shall be my people, and I shall be their Elohim, for they shall turn back to me with all their heart. Also, back just a little bit, Matthew chapter 21, verse 33. Hear another parable. There was a certain man, a householder, who planted a vineyard and placed a hedge around it, and dug a winepress in it, and built a watchtower, and he leased it to farmers, and went abroad. And when the season of the fruits drew near, he sent his servants to the farmers to receive his fruit. And the farmers took his servants and beat one, and they killed one, and they stoned another. And again he sent other servants, more than the first, and they did likewise to them. And at last he sent his son to them, saying, They shall respect my son. But when the farmers saw the son, they said among themselves, This is the heir. Come, let's kill him, and let us possess his inheritance. And they took him and threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. This is, those verses there are all about Israel, the vineyard, and Yeshua, the son, whom they took out and killed, and the prophets. Further, I just want to go on a little bit with verse 35. The Shamayim, that's the heavens, and the earth shall pass away, but my words shall by no means pass away. People are saying, oh, you know, the earth and the heavens haven't passed away. This is a false prophecy. Come on, man. Get a grip. Believe this word to be true, and believe such men whom you don't even know must be liars. 36. I said earlier that he was talking about the second coming, not the harpazo, also known as the rapture. Verse 36 is talking about the rapture, the harpazo. But concerning that day and the hour no one knows, not even the messengers of the Shamayim, but my Father only. And as the days of Noah, so also shall be the coming of the Ben of Adam. That's yet to be seen. The days of Noah involved the Nephilim. I have videos about the Nephilim. Go dig in on those. For as they were in the days before the flood, eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, and that could be referring to the fallen angels, marrying women, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and they didn't know until the flood came and took them all away, so also shall be the coming of the Ben of Adam. Then two shall be in the field, one's taken, one is left. Harpazo, rapture. Two shall be grinding at the mill, one is taken, one is left. Watch therefore, for you don't know what hour your master is coming. You notice two are in the field, that's the afternoon. Two grinding at the mill, that's the morning. Women grinding meal, preparing to make bread for the day. It's early in the morning. Later on he says two are in bed, one's taken, the other one's left. That's at the evening. So it's showing how the harpazo happens morning, afternoon, evening. Not three events, but you know, in one place on the planet it's morning. Another place it's afternoon. On the other side of the planet it's evening. People are taken, and depending on where you are on the earth, it could be morning, could be afternoon, could be night. Verse 45, who then is a trustworthy and wise servant, whom his master put over his household to give them food in season. Baruch, blessed is that servant whom his master having come shall find him so doing. Truly I say to you that he shall put him over all his possessions. But if that evil servant says in his heart, my master is delaying in his coming, begins to beat his fellow servants, to eat and drink with the drunkards. The evil servant says in my heart, my master is delaying in his coming. Or, these are false prophecies. He didn't come. He's never going to come. Yeah, the master of that servant shall come on a day when he does not expect it, at an hour he does not know, and will cut him in two and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. In the Hebrew mindset, the Aramaic mindset, this generation, a generation in the mindset of the true Hebrew, extends until the last of the line is gone. It's not a 40-year period as some like to suggest. But even so, this quote-unquote generation, those witnessing Yeshua's word at that time, they saw the shadow of all these things. And all those things did happen. But the second coming is yet to occur. And the main key here, the way I've always looked at this, where he talks about the fig tree. When you see the fig tree getting blossoms, that's referring to Israel. When you see all of the Yahudim returning to Israel, then you know that we're entering this time frame that he's talking about, where all these things are going to be repeated in a much grander scale. And that would be May 14th, 1948. Look at Isaiah chapter 11, verse 11, where we read, it shall be in that day that Yahweh puts his hand again a second time to recover the remnant of his people who are left from Asher and from Mitzrayim, from Pathros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar, and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea, from all around the world. And he shall raise a banner for the nations and gather the outcasts of Israel and assemble the dispersed of Yehuda from the four corners of the earth, bringing them back. That's 1948. It says it'll be in that day that Yahweh puts his hand again a second time to recover the remnant of his people. Second time. The first time was in Babylon at the exile. But you have to know the whole word. And if you do know the whole word, also look at Isaiah chapter 60, verses 1 through 22. Look at Isaiah chapter 61, verses 4 through 9. Look at Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 41. And you'll see there's more to what Yeshua was talking about here than these people want you to see. Really, all they're trying to do is to steal your faith. And when you don't know the Word, and when you don't know Him, your faith can be easily shaken, because faith is a gift from Him. And if you don't know Him, you're not going to have any faith. But I'm here to tell you, there are no failed prophecies in the word of Elohim. Shalom.